We can call this video Banjo for Sale. This is the banjo I got when I bought actually several banjos. It's a long neck banjo, meaning, well, Pete Seeger played a long neck banjo, and he used to play it sometimes with and sometimes without the capo. From the capo to the bridge, actually from that fret to the bridge, is 26.5 inches, which is standard banjo length. What the long neck banjo does is it gives you an extra, what is it, 5 inches and 3 frets, 2 or 3 more frets up there. You can put the capo on that and play it like a regular banjo, or you can take the capo off and play it without it. This particular banjo is worthwhile to me because this is nickel plated brass. You can tell by the discoloration, you can see the brass. There's actually a place back here where the brass is slightly turned green. This could use a good cleanup, but a lot of it is good. And this pot is what we call a spun over brass pot, meaning this is a sheet of like brass metal that's about the width of a piece of tin. And when they make these, they spin the ends of them over back into the pot so that they make a little tone ring, top and bottom. I didn't take that off, but there should be one on top and one on the bottom, and you can see this appears to have one. This has nickel plated brass bolts, and they have hex head bolts, which I like better than screw head bolts, and they have nickel plated washers. These are nickel plated brass bolts here, and these are called shoes. They're nickel plated, and these caps or bolts, head bolts, are also nickel plated brass. That, and this is a nickel plated head ring right here. And this particular one is interesting to me because it has holes in it here. Now, a lot of times these head rings will have notches, and these hooks will just hook over into the notch. But this one literally has holes in it. You could probably figure out what kind of banjo head this is just basically by looking for a banjo that had those holes. Also, the tailpiece is nickel plated brass. I'm just gonna, I haven't really, spent a lot of time with this, but I did tune it a little, just enough to try to play a song. Got a big tone. It has gear tuning pegs, and this is what they look like. Has an interesting shape of the neck. I always think of that shape as being shaped like an old fiddle, but I don't think that's what they call that neck shape, but I always thought of it that way. Now, if I take this off, this capo here, then it's, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go per each fret and mash the fret so you can hear if there's any buzz in it. That was my finger. Now, usually if you're going to get a buzz, unless you've got a really crooked neck, it's going to be in those first 5. I didn't hear any buzz there. This neck, it's pretty good. It could use some, someone could play with a little bit. This is your string fret height, let's say here at the head. Get the camera just where you can see that. If I could hold the banjo and hold that all together, but what I'm guessing is this height here is about 3/8 of an inch. You could bring this down a little bit by moving this rod, and if you look at this rod, there's room in it to move. Somebody put this neck on this banjo. There's a little bit of wiggle room here and up here for this neck to be adjusted, which is something that I do. When I get a banjo, I very often go in and I'll adjust the neck. I haven't even adjusted the head on this. And to be honest with you, it's a great sounding banjo. Of course, it's not going to sound very great with me playing it fretted way up there. But let me put this back on here. Let's see if I can get this fret is not bad, but it's not the one I would carry and use if I carried this around and played it. Well, I could use a tuner, couldn't I? I'll stop singing so you can hear the banjo. What I like about this banjo is the big sound. This is a big sound. Now you can't get this from, if you go in a banjo store today and you take a magnet and you walk up to the banjos hanging on the walls and you touch that magnet to any piece of metal in this banjo, the magnet will either stick to it because it's steel or it won't, but it won't be because it's brass, it'll be because it's aluminum. You can tell by the weight of it. This is a heavy banjo. This weighs about like a toolbox full of ratchet wrenches. So anyway, bottom line is I'm putting this up with no, what do they call that when you you have to bid so much? No, whatchamacallit. I'm just putting it up. You start to bidding at $1. I'm going to let you figure up the shipping cost and buy that through eBay. So whatever the highest bidder is that goes for this banjo, I'm happy to see you get it. It's not a perfect banjo. I'm looking right here there's a little chip in the wood. There's a little chip in the side of that neck. But it's still a pretty good banjo, and if you want a long neck banjo that's not the cheap Chinese banjo, but a real good, well-made, high quality. By the way, this is a maple pot, and this is a maple neck, and you can see, they call this tiger maple. You can see the lines in that maple. That's what they call tiger maple, and you can see the grain down here in this pot. There is a screw in the back of this. Now, whoever put this neck on here had the screw screwed in there. The screw went in there in such a way that it tilted the neck just a hair toward me. Now, I like that because I don't like to have to reach way around like this. I like it with the neck tilted a little, and if I was keeping it, I'd keep it that way. But if you take that out, you can straighten that neck up. And like I say, there's a little wiggle room in this neck, so you can adjust on it a little bit. And I like that. Some people, like if you're a beginner, you might want to buy a cheap Chinese banjo because generally, although they're not much quality, they come from the factory kind of all set up with a straight neck, and you can pull them out of the box and do a quick tune-up and start playing. This is more the kind of banjo you're going to buy if you want something unique. I wouldn't put a year on this banjo. The way it is made, back in here. This could very easily be a banjo from the 1920s, like an S.S. Stewart or something like that. However, the crispness, what I mean by that is the newness of it, of the edges of the wood and all, makes me think this might have come out later, and it could have been from someone like Stuart MacDonald. I don't know what they're putting out for banjos now, but they used to put out some pretty good banjo heads. Usually their banjo heads, well, first of all, I rarely ever remember seeing a spun over pot with the metal on it. Mostly they would just make metal pots, and they would make them bigger. They would make them about 3/8 of an inch, something like that, a little bit bigger than a half. I said this was 3/8 a while ago. I should have said 3/16 because that's like, well, anyway, it is what it is. It's a plastic frosted head, and if you want it, it'll be up and you can bet on it. I've probably already made this about a half-hour long video. I love that sound. This appears to be a mahogany fretboard. I say it appears to be, I don't know. And it's got these little dots on it. So, and this is the dot where you get your, by the way, someone has had, this has a fifth string bridge, peg, whatever you want to call it here, but there's also one here. Someone had an additional fifth string down here, but it wasn't a railroad strike, it was more like a screw. Somebody took that out, but there's a hole in that right there. So that's all I know about this banjo, the good and the bad. If you've listened to this much of the video, you must be interested. So this would, by the way, polish up real nice. You can see how crusty, it's kind of faded. But if you took this all apart, you cleaned this real good, and you buffed these sides, you could make them shiny. You can make that into a beautiful banjo. So there you have it. See if I can get a little tune out of here. Okay, there's that. Love y'all. See ya. Have a nice day. Appreciate you. By the way, I'm selling this to pay for my wife to take a trip to go to her granddaughter's wedding. And I'm probably have another one I'm going to sell. Not exactly like this one, but also pretty unique. Okay.